There is a court not made by human hands. It has no walls, no visible doors, but its reality is denser than any concrete and loftier than any earthly palace. It is the invisible court, where God's elect are constantly placed as defendants before accusations that were not born in heaven, but sprang from the depths of envy and fear. You, God's elect, know what it means to carry on your shoulders accusations that never spoke the truth. Since the beginning of time, those who were set apart, consecrated, marked by the light, have always been targets of voices that tried to silence, defame, and distort. For the enemy does not attack the void. He only attacks that which carries an eternal purpose. In the invisible, there is a scene few see, a table of accusers, voices echoing like falsified thunder, trying to paint their image with colors that do not belong to them. The atmosphere is that of a court, but it is a distorted court, because the evidence they present is not truth but projected shadows. And herein lies the mystery. The accusers only set up tribunals against the elect because they themselves are in ruins. What they see in you, in your life, in your spiritual brilliance, is a threat they cannot explain. They feel your presence like fire burning through their darkness. They cannot bear the way the silence of the elect disturbs, how your consecration betrays their lack of essence. So they create narratives. They invent stories, and they try to dress you in clothes that are not yours. But listen, God's elect, the tribunal they have set up is no greater than the eternal tribunal of the Most High. The invisible room in which they want to place you as guilty has already been invaded by the light of justice. There is a judge who cannot be bought, cannot be manipulated, cannot be influenced by false voices. They try to paint you as a criminal when in fact they are the ones revealing their own corruption. They call you a problem, but deep down what they confess is their own inability to live in truth. And every accusation leveled against you becomes, in the spiritual world, a testament to your distinction. Look at the ancient prophets, at the men and women raised up by God. All without exception have undergone the invisible judgment. Daniel was thrown into the pit because of accusations. Joseph was imprisoned for fabricated lies. Jeremiah was called a liar and a traitor. Jesus, the Son of the living God, was condemned in a rigged court, where the truth was silenced, but eternal justice arose on the third day. Understand this secret. If you are being unjustly accused, it is because you carry something that disturbs kingdoms of darkness. You are not in the dock because you are weak, but because you are strong. You are not being singled out because you are empty, but because you overflow. They would not be obsessed with trying to incriminate you if they did not feel, within themselves, that your life is a living decree confronting their darkness. The invisible court is a spiritual school. It reveals who you are before God and exposes who others are before themselves. Because when they try to condemn you, they are actually writing their own sentence. Their words become ropes that strangle them. The accusations they create against you become walls that imprison them. The deepest mystery of this judgment is that you, God's chosen one, never entered this courtroom alone. When they prepared the judgment seat, heaven had already prepared the throne. When they sharpened their tongues to condemn you, heaven had already written the sentence, justified. That's why you resist. That's why, even when attacked, slandered, and distorted, there is something in you that cannot be broken. Because the invisible court does not exist to destroy you, but to reveal before heaven and earth that your life is sealed with the eternal seal of the Most High. And here's the key. Every accusation against you is, in fact, a public announcement of your election. If they accuse you, it's because they know you have been marked. If they try to put you in the dock, it's because they can't handle the throne already reserved for you. Therefore, do not fear the invisible judgment. It is not the end. It is merely the curtain that opens on the scene of your vindication. For it is written, "No weapon formed against you shall prosper, and every tongue that rises against you in judgment, you shall condemn. This is your right as God's chosen one. This is your eternal decree. There is a spiritual secret that few understand. The eyes don't just see, they reveal. The gaze is a window to the soul, and that is why when one of God's chosen ones walks through the world, the eyes of the envious cannot look away. They are not just observing, they are confessing. They are not just noticing, they are being confronted by the reflection of their own prisons. When the chosen one appears, they bring not only a physical presence, but an atmosphere. Their life carries codes, frequencies, invisible signals. These signals act like mirrors. They reveal what is hidden in the hearts of others. This is why those who are at peace feel strengthened around you, but those who are at war with themselves feel uneasy. It is not you who bothers them. It is the reflection of what they do not want to face. They look at you and see discipline, and it reveals the weakness of their surrender. They see your light, and it exposes the darkness in which they have chosen to live. They see your silence, and that silence becomes noise within their minds. They see your victory, and it reminds them of the defeats they chose not to overcome. And then, obsession is born. Envy is the first step, but obsession is the final prison. Because the more they try to erase you, the more they become prisoners of their own shadow. Think of the mirror. The mirror never creates an image. It only reflects. It doesn't invent anything, it only reveals. The same thing happens in the spirit. You don't create the evil they see in you. You merely reflect what was already in them. The hatred they try to place on you wasn't born in you, it was born in them. You are merely the reflection that reveals the prison that imprisons them. The envious person is like someone standing before a broken mirror. They see themselves fragmented, distorted, cracked. The more they look, the more they hate the image before them. But instead of seeking healing, they try to destroy the mirror. They think, if I break this reflection, maybe I can escape the truth. But the truth isn't in the mirror. The truth is within them. The mirror only revealed it. That's why they can't leave you alone. Because every time they see you, they're reminded of who they are not. Your every achievement reminds them of the desert they walk in. Your every silence is a judgment against the noise of their soul. Every time you stand firm, they sense their instability, and it corrodes them, it consumes them, it enslaves them. They become obsessed. Obsession is crueler than envy, because envy desires what you have, but obsession can no longer live without you. They follow you silently, watch you in the shadows, feed on your life as if it were oxygen. They can't stop thinking about you, even when they say they don't care. They can't stop mentioning you, even when they swear you don't matter. They can't ignore your existence, because your existence has become their prison. And here's the decree. This obsession isn't coincidence, it's judgment. Heaven transforms the gaze of the envious into a spiritual chain. The time they spend observing you is the time they don't grow. The energies they unleash against you return like chains that bind them. They don't realize it, but each accusation they hurl is another brick in the wall of their own prison. God's chosen one, understand, they are not just looking at you, they are condemning themselves before you. Because the mirror of obsession is an altar of revelation. Before it, no mask remains, no secret remains unexposed. They project lies, but the reflection returns truth. They try to cast darkness, but the reflection returns light. They try to paint you as a villain, but their own narrative reveals who they truly are. See the divine irony. The mirror they hate is exactly what heaven uses to expose them. The obsession they harbor against you is proof of the power you carry. The persecution they invent is proof of the anointing you carry. The more they talk about you, the more they confirm who you are. The more they try to incriminate you, the more they incriminate themselves. This is the invisible justice. They think they're building a web against you, but in reality they're entangled in their own web. They think they're accusing you, but they're signing their own sentence. They believe they're arresting you, but they're tying their own hands. And you? You don't need to fight to justify yourself. You don't need to explain yourself. The mirror doesn't need to say anything. It simply reflects. So too you, God's chosen one. Your mission is not to prove anything, but remain. Remain shining. Keep walking. Because the reflection of your life already does the work that words cannot. They tried to incriminate you, but in their gaze, they incriminated themselves. They tried to extinguish your light, but revealed their own darkness. They tried to turn you into a prison, but became prisoners of their own obsession. And listen, there will come a time when the reflection will become public. What they hide today in glances, in whispers, in shadows, will be laid bare before many. The obsession they try to conceal will be revealed as testimony, because heaven leaves nothing hidden, and when that happens, you will see justice manifest. You will see that you didn't need to fight, defend yourself, or justify yourself. You simply remained, and the light did the rest. God's chosen one, do not fear the obsessed eyes. They are merely signs that you carry something greater. They are confirmation that your life shines brighter than you imagine. They are reminders that you do not walk alone. You walk carrying the mirror of heaven, and that mirror never lies. The chains of manipulation. When they try to trap you in false narratives, there is a prison crueler than any physical cell. The prison built by words. Words are invisible threads, but when woven together by envious hands, they become chains that attempt to bind the identity of God's chosen ones. This chapter reveals this, the manipulation of narratives. You, God's chosen one, have you ever noticed how they tried to write your story without your permission? They wove together phrases, created rumors, invented versions. They talked about you in circles you never attended. They constructed images of you in minds you never encountered. They created invisible chains, believing they could imprison you in words that did not originate with God. Narrative is the weapon of choice for those who fear the truth. Because they know they cannot touch your essence, they try to distort your image. They cannot kill your light, so they try to tarnish your reputation. They cannot stop your destiny, so they try to convince others that you have no destiny at all. The enemy has always worked this way. From the beginning, when the serpent twisted words in Eden, not by touching the tree, but by manipulating its meaning. When he cannot destroy the promise, he manipulates the interpretation. When he cannot erase the anointing, he invents stories. When he cannot nullify the divine decree, he writes human narratives. But listen, elect. No narrative crafted by envious hands is stronger than the decree written by the finger of God. These chains of manipulation work like spider webs. They seem fragile, but they are treacherous. The more you try to justify yourself before them, the more you seem to become entangled. This is why many fall. They waste energy responding to lies, trying to explain themselves to those who never wanted to understand. The secret, however, is this. The web cannot trap the eagle. The narrative cannot nullify the decree. Manipulated words cannot rewrite the book of life. See how manipulation works. They distort simple facts to appear like monsters. They take silences and turn them into suspicions. They take personal choices and turn them into public accusations. And what's most cruel, they tell the lie so many times that people begin to believe it. These invisible chains, however, don't define you. They merely reveal the desperation of those who cannot handle their authenticity. You don't need to prove anything. Because the chosen one doesn't live by human narrative. They live by eternal decree. Think of Joseph, son of Jacob. He was unjustly accused by Potiphar, imprisoned by a narrative that wasn't his. But what happened? The prison didn't nullify his destiny. It only accelerated his rise to the throne. What seemed like a chain became a ladder. So too are you. Narratives are not walls, but hidden steps. Manipulation is a form of dark magic, an attempt to control perceptions, to shape atmospheres, to imprison souls through fear of human judgment. But the truth is, this magic has no power over those who have already been freed by the eternal word. They tried to write that you were a villain, but heaven has already written that you are an inheritance. They tried to paint you as a failure, but heaven has already decreed that you are a victory. They tried to frame you as a defendant, but heaven has already registered you as crowned. And listen carefully. Every word manipulated against you does not vanish into thin air. In the spiritual court, every lie is recorded as evidence against the liar himself. Every chain they try to throw at you becomes a shackle that imprisons the one who cast it. It is the boomerang effect of divine justice. They write narratives, but they become characters in their own downfall. And you walk free, because invisible chains cannot hold back those who carry spiritual wings. You don't need to fight lies. You simply remain true, and the truth, sooner or later, always prevails. The deepest mystery is this: the more they try to trap you in false narratives, the more exposed they become as obsessed. Because no one creates so many stories about someone without confessing, deep down, that someone is too great to be ignored. God's chosen one. Understand? You are not hostage to their words. You are the guardian of the eternal words. Your life is not tied to what they say, but to what God has written. And what God has written cannot be erased. The chains of manipulation are fragile before the fire of revelation. The webs of narratives burn before the light of truth. Invisible bonds break before the breath of the Spirit. They tried to incriminate you, but in the attempt, they revealed their obsession. They wrote against you, but every word will be used as testimony to your elevation. They tried to create chains, but in the end, they will be the ones chained by their own inventions. And you walk free, chosen by God, free as the eagle, free as the wind, free as the flame that cannot be contained. There is an invisible court where fire is the judge. This fire is not human. It is not extinguished by the rain of accusations. It is not extinguished by the wind of lies. It is not diminished by time. It is the eternal fire, which dwells on the divine altar. And it is before this altar that all the evidence, accusations, and lies leveled against God's chosen ones are brought and exposed. They believed they could gather papers, words, distorted testimonies, and manipulated images. They thought that, with the weight of this evidence, they would be able to conceal their identity and tarnish their path. What they didn't know is that everything leveled against God's chosen ones must necessarily pass through the sieve of divine fire. Fire does not lie. It does not accept manipulation. It is not deceived by human reports. It does not bow before false witnesses. Fire consumes everything that has no root in God. Imagine, they place accusations, rumors, and distorted records on the altar. The cursed words they hurled at you, the thoughts they wished would become reality, the narratives that surrounded you like walls, all of this is placed before the fire. And what happens? A flame rises and begins to consume. The papers burn. The words turn to ash. The accusations turn to dust. And meanwhile, what is true, what was born in God, remains shining like refined gold. God's chosen one, understand this mystery. Injustice is not the end of your story. It is merely fuel for the altar. The more they try to accuse you, the more fire is lit. The more words they hurl at you, the more ashes are produced. And from the ashes, an even greater testimony is born. You are gold passing through the fire, and each attack is just another opportunity for your purity to be revealed. Men believe that injustice can extinguish a life, But in the spiritual realm, injustice is just another opportunity to burn away what is worthless and highlight what is eternal. Think of Daniel, thrown into the lion's den by an unjust plot. The decree against him was signed. The evidence was documented. The human court had ruled, but the court of fire had already determined otherwise. And when the sun rose, what remained? Injustice turned to ash, and God's decree was fulfilled. So it is with you. They can gather testimonies, records, accusations, but when the fire touches, only what God said will remain. Fire is impartial. It is not moved by false tears. It is not seduced by performances. It does not bow before crowds. It consumes everything that lacks true essence. Therefore, do not fear injustice. It is not a sentence. It is a process of purification. Injustice is like wood thrown on the altar. The more they try to burn your reputation, the stronger the flame that reveals your authenticity. And there is something even deeper. Every piece of evidence leveled against you is like an illegitimate offering. On the altar of the divine court, fire not only consumes, it judges. Listen carefully. The same fire that purifies you is the fire that condemns your enemies. The same flame that burns away the chains of lies is the flame that ignites the architects of injustice. They thought they could manipulate your story, but they forgot that fire cannot be manipulated. They thought they could hide the truth, but fire always reveals what is true. They believed they could extinguish your light, but the fire only made it shine even brighter. Elect, you are living proof that no one can extinguish God's decree. Your life is a testimony to the fire that never goes out. You don't need to fight with your hands, nor waste your energy trying to extinguish accusations. Stand firm, because the fire will do what you cannot. This fire is the divine presence. It is eternal justice. It is the invisible manifestation that turns lies into ashes and truths into gold. And while they try to fuel the fire with their accusations, unwittingly, they are only offering sacrifices that further reveal who you are. Listen to what the Spirit says. Injustice is not your defeat. It is the stage for your revelation. They prepared a fire to destroy you, but they forgot that fire, for you, is not destruction, but purification. Just like the 3 Hebrew young men thrown into the fiery furnace, they were accused, judged, condemned. But when they entered the fire, they were not consumed. On the contrary, in the midst of the fire, the divine presence manifested itself. And when they came out, there was no smell of smoke upon them. So it will be with you. When it is all over, you will not carry even the smell of injustice. They will look and realize, he should have been destroyed, but he's stronger. He should be finished, but he's standing. He should have lost everything, but he's crowned. This is the power of divine fire. Injustice is temporary, but the decree is eternal. Lies are fleeting, but the truth is unbreakable. Accusations are fragile, but the identity God gave you is indestructible. They may gather evidence against you, but it will all turn to ashes on the altar. They may scream their lies, but the fire will turn their screams into silence. They may even try to imprison you, but the fire will open the doors they tried to lock. God's chosen, know this. The fire burns, but it does not burn you. The fire consumes, but it does not consume your essence. The fire judges, but it does not judge against you. It judges in your favor. And in the end, when the flames subside, there will be only 2 things. You, standing, shining like gold, and them, surrounded by the ashes of their own obsession. Because what was raised against the chosen does not last. The fire will always have the last word. When the enemy's secrets come to light. There are secrets that men believe they keep in iron vaults. There are words they believe hidden in muffled whispers in the shadows. They plot against God's chosen ones. They plot in silence, believing no one sees them, no one hears them. But what they don't know is that, in the invisible realm, there are no secrets. What is whispered in the dark room will sooner or later be shouted from the rooftops. Yes, chosen one. What your enemies have plotted in secret is about to be revealed in the light. What was spoken in the shadows will be laid bare at noonday. What was planned in silence will echo like thunder for all to hear. For the time of revelation has come. The whispers against you were poison, words of envy, of slander, of destruction. They whispered to try to influence, to sow doubt, to corrode your image. But there is a spiritual law that cannot be broken. Everything spoken in secret will be revealed. Imagine a dark room where people whisper among themselves, believing that silence protects. But suddenly, a light shines through the cracks, illuminating every face, every gesture, every word. There is no longer a hiding place. What was secret is now public. What was whispered is now scandal. This is the fate of all who rise up against God's elect. Their secrets expose them. The very poison they spewed in silence becomes the cry that condemns them. Elect, do not be alarmed by the silence behind the scenes. Many are disturbed because they hear nothing. Are they plotting against me? Are they preparing something in secret? Yes, they plot. Yes, they whisper. But each whisper is just another testimony being recorded for the day of revelation. The sky records what their mouths speak. The wind carries their words. The fire preserves them until the moment everything comes to light. And when the cry echoes, it won't be against you, it will be against them. There is a divine principle. Those who plot in silence against the elect end up being unmasked in public. Those who plot in secret against the light end up being exposed by their own reflection. They tried to hide their sins by pointing at yours, but the finger they raised turns against themselves. The whisper of accusation becomes the cry of confession. They whispered, "He will not resist." But soon everyone will hear the cry, "He resisted, he won." They whispered, "She will fall." But soon it will be heard, "She remains standing, crowned with glory." They whispered, "They are nothing." But the heavens have already decreed, they are the elect and have an eternal inheritance. Pay attention, elect. When God decides to reveal, no wall can contain it. No secret can remain. No covenant can resist. He exposes. He brings to light. He unmasks. And when revelation happens, those who once whispered flee in despair, because they cannot deny what has come to light. That's why you don't need to worry about defending yourself against every word, every accusation, every malicious comment. Your defense lies in revelation. God delights in exposing the secrets of those who have risen against his children. And do you know what is most powerful? Many who believe the whisper will hear the cry and repent. Many who followed the lie will come to their senses when the truth is proclaimed. Because the cry is not only revelation, it is also judgment. Whispers are fragile, but cries cannot be silenced. Whispers belong to men, but cries belong to God. And here is a mystery. God's elect need not whisper or shout. They simply remain. The whisper of their enemies becomes a cry against them, and the silence of the elect becomes a testimony. Don't be alarmed if you now only hear whispers, rumors, insinuations. This is just the prelude. When the time comes, all who whispered will be forced to scream. Some will scream in confession, others in shame, others in despair. But everyone, without exception, will have their voice exposed. Whispering is the weapon of the weak. Shouting is God's judgment. Elect, see, the stage is already set. Heaven has already lit the lights. The fire is already burning on the altar, and soon the secrets will come to light. There will be no denying, no hiding. Everything will be revealed. What must you do? Remain. Trust. Wait. Because while they speak in silence, God prepares the scene of unmasking. While they try to accuse you, heaven writes the decree of your victory. You will not be destroyed by whispering. You will be exalted by shouting. And when the voice from heaven echoes, it will be impossible to ignore. This is God's chosen one. No one can accuse him because God himself justifies him. The whispers of men are fragile. God's cry is eternal. The prison of obsession. How enemies become slaves to their own lies. God's chosen one. There is a weight that does not rest on you, but on those who have risen against you. It is the weight of obsession. Because whoever persecutes an anointed one, whoever tries to overthrow a chosen one, whoever decides to waste their words, their time, and their energy against a child of the Most High, sooner or later finds themselves imprisoned by the very thing they have raised. Obsession is an invisible prison. It has no iron bars, but it does have chains that weigh on the mind, chains that crush the soul, chains that drain vital energy. The envious, the accuser, the persecutor, they all become hostages to their own hatred. And herein lies the mystery. God's chosen one remains free, even if slandered. The enemy, even if they scream, even if they try to manipulate, becomes captive to their own poison. It's as if every lie he utters becomes a brick in the wall that imprisons him. Think about it. They wake up thinking about you. They sleep talking about you. They plan their days around how they might see you fall. They say you are unimportant, but their very obsession proves otherwise. Because we only persecute those who carry something rare, we only attack those who have a disturbing light. Elect, realize, you are not a slave to this plot. They are. You don't live for them. They live for you. They are like shadows trying to follow you, but the problem is that the more they chase, the more they become trapped in their own darkness. This is how the prison of obsession works. The more they fight against the chosen, the more they become entangled in their own web. They become like hunters trapped in their own trap, like spiders devoured by the web they created. See the divine irony. They wanted to incriminate you, but they incriminate themselves. They wanted to expose you, but they expose themselves. They wanted to imprison you, but they are imprisoned. Because every evil energy they unleash against God's children returns multiplied. And this imprisonment is not just spiritual. It affects body, mind, and destiny. The obsessed don't sleep well. Their hearts race. Stress consumes their bones. The poison of envy corrodes like acid. They age prematurely. Their relationships crumble. Their prosperity dries up. Because the spirit of obsession doesn't come alone. It brings with it ruin, scarcity, and confusion. Meanwhile, you, the chosen one, continue to be raised, continue to be strengthened, continue to be renewed, and the contrast becomes clear. On one side, the obsessed one, trapped, withered, empty. On the other side, you, free, alive, carrying the radiance of divine justice. Make no mistake, the obsession of your enemies is living proof that you are God's chosen one. Because those who have nothing do not arouse envy. Those who carry no light do not disturb darkness. Those who wear no crown do not attract hunters. And do you know what's even more profound? Many of those who persecute you don't realize they are no longer masters of their own lives. They have become slaves to a narrative. They need to keep attacking. They need to keep inventing. They need to keep watching your every move. Because their silence would be a confession of their own defeat. They can't stop because stopping would be admitting, you won. So they keep going. But by continuing, they become even more entangled. Imagine someone trying to extinguish the sun with their bare hands. It's ridiculous. It's impossible. But still, they try. This constant attempt tires them, corrodes them, traps them. Because the light cannot be extinguished, and the more they try, the more they become prisoners of their own darkness. Elect, do not be afraid of their obsession. because every day they spend trapped in this is another day of glory heaped upon you. Every word they utter comes back to them as a sentence. Every trap they set becomes the snare that binds them. And here's the revelation. You don't need to fight their obsession. You don't need to waste energy trying to defend yourself. You just need to remain. Your permanence is their prison. Your fidelity is their sentence. Your light is their prison. They watch you, but they can't touch you. They accuse you, but they can't stop you. They envy you, but they can't erase you. Because God's elect don't live trapped by opinions. They live anchored in the eternal decree. So don't be surprised when you begin to notice the downfall of the obsessed. Broken relationships, closed doors, shattered health. It's no coincidence. It's divine justice. It's not human punishment. It's a spiritual harvest. They sowed obsession, and now they reap torment. They sowed lies, and now they reap shame. They fed envy, and now they feed on emptiness. And you are living proof that freedom is not the absence of persecution, but victory over it. You are a testimony that God's elect can walk amid accusations without being harmed, because their lives are not in the hands of men, but in the court of heaven. Those who are obsessed are not free. They are prisoners of their own lies. The elect are not prisoners. They are free, even in the midst of battles. And this difference will be exposed before all. Prepare yourself, elect. What once seemed like persecution will be revealed as obsession, and what seemed like their victory will be revealed as ruin. They didn't imprison you. They imprisoned themselves. They didn't accuse you. They accused themselves. They didn't destroy you. They destroyed themselves. And when heaven decrees the final revelation, all will see you are free and they are slaves. You are heirs of the promise and they are hostages of lies. You are God's elect and nothing can change that decree. God's chosen ones, hear this revelation. Every tear you have shed has not been wasted. Every insult you have endured in silence has not been in vain. Every attack launched against you, every harsh word, every injustice, every look of contempt, all of this is being gathered and transformed into the invisible. For heaven lets nothing go unnoticed. What for many is pain, for God's chosen ones becomes a process of polishing. The crown of resistance is not made of common gold. It is not shaped by human hands, nor bought with earthly riches. This crown is born of battles fought in silence, of wars no one saw, of the days you stood tall when everything around you wanted to tear you down. Every attack you received has become a precious stone set in this crown. Perceive the mystery. Your enemies believed they were diminishing you, but in truth, they were adding to your glory. They thought every word they hurled would cut your soul, but every wound became a diamond in your spiritual head. They don't understand, but what they threw at you didn't break you, it built you. Just as coal needs to be crushed by pressure to become a diamond, so too are God's elect forged. Pressure doesn't destroy the chosen one, it transforms them. Rejection doesn't diminish the chosen one, it prepares them. Persecution doesn't steal their identity, it confirms it. Because only those who carry something eternal are tested in the fire. See the scene. In the court of eternity, attacks become records. Every curse, every slander, every spiritual weapon forged against you. All of this is converted into building material for your crown. They wounded you, but the wound became a radiance. They tried to steal your peace, but their restlessness became your victory. And here's the key. The crown isn't given to those who have never suffered. The crown is given to those who resisted. Heaven does not reward those who have never been tested, but rather those who have not yielded to trials. This is the mark of God's chosen. The world looks at you and cannot understand how you are still standing. They see the storms you have faced, the deserts you have traversed, the betrayals you have endured, the accusations you have borne, and yet you remain. The secret is that your strength does not come from yourself. It comes from the one who promised, "No one can snatch out of my hand the one I have chosen." God's chosen one. Every attack against you was a hammer striking metal, but the hammer did not break you. It shaped your crown. Every tear was the fire that refined you. Every dark night was the furnace that purified you. And now, what seemed like defeat is transforming into testimony. See beyond the natural. While your enemies laughed, thinking they had won, in the spiritual world, celestial artisans were fashioning your reward. While they celebrated your falls, heaven recorded your resilience. While they plotted your downfall, angels were polishing precious stones to adorn your head. And this crown is not just a future symbol. It already weighs on you now. Because the resistance you have demonstrated has already changed your atmosphere. Your voice already carries authority. Your presence already disturbs environments. Wherever you enter, something changes. And this is the fruit of the invisible crown you already wear. But be careful, chosen one. Do not confuse resistance with hardness. Resistance is remaining flexible in spirit but firm in faith. Resistance is enduring without losing your gentleness. It is facing without losing your love. It is rising without seeking revenge. Because the crown is not given to those who return attack for attack, but to those who remain unshaken in the face of the storm. The enemy does not understand how you can love when you should hate, smile when you should cry, walk when you should stop. But it is because you do not live by the laws of the earth. You live by the decree of heaven. And in that decree it is written, "Blessed are those who are persecuted for righteousness' sake, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven." So know this, your resistance isn't just yours, it's your inheritance. What you endure today paves the way for those who come after you. Your crown isn't just individual, it's generational. It speaks to your children, your grandchildren, to everyone who will touch the legacy you're building. Each precious stone is an open door in the future. Have you ever noticed that the more attacks, the brighter your light shines? This is no coincidence. It's divine justice. Because persecution never diminishes the chosen one, it only confirms it. With every attempt to extinguish you, you re-emerge stronger, brighter, more unbeatable. This is resistance transformed into glory. Therefore, don't lament the attacks. Don't curse the difficult days. Don't wish you hadn't gone through any of this. Because without attacks, there is no crown. Without resistance, there is no inheritance. Without fire, there is no brilliance. God's chosen one, heaven calls you today to lift your head and realize you are already crowned. You may not yet see it physically, but the weight of glory already rests upon. The heavens already recognize you. The darkness already fears the authority you carry. And when the time of revelation arrives, all will see what has already been decreed. You resisted, and for that you will be honored. And remember, every insult was a stone. Every betrayal was a ruby. Every lie was a diamond. Every night of tears was a sapphire. Every painful silence was an emerald. And all of this now makes up the crown of resistance that rests upon you. They tried to strip you of your dignity, but they only added glory. They tried to steal your identity, but they only confirmed your calling. They tried to bury you, but they only proved that you are a seed. And now, elected, your stance will be a testimony, because the world will see. Nothing could bring you down. No lie could silence you. No attack could destroy you. You are living proof of the resistance that creates a crown, your life.
When enemies unmask each other, God's chosen, listen to this revelation. Every alliance made in darkness against you was born doomed to ruin. For that which is founded on hatred cannot stand. That which is built on envy breaks. That which is built on lies dissolves like sand before the waves of the sea. They have gathered against you, not because they truly know you, but because they recognize in you something they cannot bear, the mark of heaven. When they cannot destroy one of God's chosen ones alone, they seek out others who carry the same frustration, the same envy, the same bitterness. This is how false alliances are formed, coalitions of the wounded who bleed on the innocent. But here is the spiritual secret. Alliances made against God's chosen ones never last, because there is no foundation to support the lie. It is like a house built on quicksand. The more they try to build it, the more it sinks. See the scene in the invisible. They gather at secret tables, murmur in corners, plot strategies, share distorted information. They believe that together they will be strong enough to bring you down. But what they don't realize is that their union is not founded on truth, but on obsession, and every obsession is a prison. They become accomplices out of convenience, not conviction, and what is born of convenience dies of betrayal, because the envy that united them is the same envy that will soon divide them. The lie they built together will become a double-edged sword. God's chosen one, do not fear alliances against you, for the eternal word has already declared, no weapon formed against you shall prosper, no matter how many unite. No matter how many voices are raised, no matter how many strategies are organized, what is against you cannot stand. See how heaven works. God allows them to unite so that they can later unmask each other. He lets them walk a few steps together so that they can later reveal themselves against each other. The Lord always confuses the language of those who rise up against his chosen ones, just as he did in Babel, when men wanted to build a tower to magnify themselves, but were scattered, so he does today. He confuses plans, mixes voices, transforms allies into adversaries. They began united in his name, but will end divided in their own shadows. For there is no true communion in the kingdom of darkness. The same spirit of envy that united them will lead them to distrust. The same poison they distilled against you, they will soon use against each other. See the cycle. First, they unite against the chosen one. Then, realizing they have failed to destroy, they begin to suspect each other. Who failed? Who failed to fulfill their agreement? Who over-delivered, and so accusation begets accusation, and the fire they lit against you turns against themselves. Chosen of God, you need not raise your hand to defend yourself. Their downfall will not come from your efforts, but from the very fragile structure they have built. It is the spiritual law of the seed. Those who sow division reap division. Those who plant falsehood reap falsehood. Those who conspire will be betrayed. And here is an even deeper revelation. When they unmask each other, what was hidden comes to light. Secrets are exposed. Plans are revealed. Words that were spoken in secret suddenly become public. They tried to hide it, but the very collapse of the alliance brings what was buried to light. Note: alliances made in darkness have no pact of loyalty, only a pact of convenience. And convenience lasts as long as there is interest. When the interest ends, the pact ends too. This is why false allies become each other's worst enemies. Those who walk hand in hand in darkness today will stab each other in the back tomorrow. While they fall into ruin, you are preserved. While they devour each other, you grow. While they divide, you remain. For your alliance is not with men, but with the Most High. Its basis is not envy, but purpose. Its foundation is not lies, but truth. The crown you bear does not depend on what they say, but on what has been decreed. While they fight among themselves, you continue to advance. While they consume each other, you flourish. For the righteous flourish even in the desert. Elect of God, do not waste energy trying to justify yourself. Do not distract yourself trying to prove your innocence to those who have already decided not to believe it. Do not try to dismantle the alliance of your enemies with your own hands, because it is already programmed to crumble on its own. Your part is to remain silent and trust. Heaven has already decreed they will destroy each other. And when this happens, it will be so evident that you will not need to say anything. Masks will fall, alliances will break, accomplices will accuse each other, and you will see before your eyes the dismantling of what seemed solid. But here's the most powerful part. You will witness that you never needed to retaliate. Your victory came not from revenge, but from patience. It did not come from war, but from persevering. And everyone will see that your strength came from the Lord, who fights for you. Therefore, stand up in confidence. Do not fear the number of those who gather. Do not fear the strength of the voices that rise. For the greater the alliance against you, the greater the thunder of their ruin. And remember, your alliance is eternal. They unite for a time, but you have been united to the throne of the Most High forever. They unite in hatred, but you remain in love. They unite in darkness, but you walk in the light. And light always conquers darkness. Always.
God's chosen ones, listen carefully. Nothing plotted against you will remain hidden. Everything plotted in the shadows, everything spoken in silence, everything manipulated behind the scenes will one day become public. Because light has an eternal function to expose. And when the light arrives, there is no hiding what was done in the dark. What seemed like a solid accusation crumbles. What seemed like a convincing narrative falls apart. What seemed like indisputable proof is revealed as a lie. The fire of truth consumes, and the lie, which seemed like a structure, turns out to be dry straw. They thought that by exposing you, they would be decreeing your downfall. But here lies the mystery. Everything that was used to hurt you, God transforms into testimony. The stage they prepared for your shame becomes the altar of your victory. The tribunal they set up against you becomes the setting for your vindication. See the scene. They brought torches to reveal your weakness. But when they lit the fire, they didn't realize they were illuminating their own lie. The same fire they thought would burn you burned their masks. The same fire they prepared to expose you exposed their falsehood. God's chosen one, understand this. The enemy never controls the final word. He can plan, he can plot, he can manipulate, but he cannot seal the end of the story, because the final narrative belongs to the Lord, and the Lord always transforms the enemy's plot into a stage of glory. This is why you should not fear exposure, because what they expose is not your defeat, but their obsession. What comes to light is not your shame, but the truth that proves who you are. Light is not afraid to be seen, because there is nothing to hide in what is pure. See the spiritual inversion. What began as an attack ends as a testimony. What began as an attempt at destruction becomes an instrument of multiplication. What seemed like an end becomes the beginning of something greater. God's elect always carry this mystery. Everything cooperates, even the attacks, even the slander, even the false accusations. Everything becomes raw material for the revelation of your identity. And here is a spiritual code. When the truth is revealed, it not only frees you, but also frees those who were deluded by lies. Because many believed what was said against you. Many accepted the false narratives. Many were blinded by manipulation. But when the light arrives, the illusion dissipates, and they clearly see who was telling the truth all along. Your testimony is not just for you. It is for multitudes who need to see, through you, God's justice manifested. You are not just a survivor. You are living proof that no one can erase what the Almighty has decreed. God's elect, the light is invincible. Darkness may try to cover it, but it always fails. Lies may try to sustain themselves, but they always fall. Because light does not ask for permission to enter. It simply enters and transforms everything. And when the light enters, what was hidden is revealed. What was a lie is confronted. What was shadow dissipates. This is the reason you are still standing. It wasn't because there were no attacks, but because no attack can withstand the power of the light that dwells within you. They tried to destroy your reputation, but your integrity shone. They tried to silence your voice, but your essence spoke louder. They tried to extinguish your flame, but your light only intensified. And now, what remains for them? The silence of shame. Because every plan against you has been thwarted. Every attack against you has become a testimony. Every trap against you has become a stepping stone to your elevation. But understand, your testimony is not just about personal victory. It is about the glory of God being manifested through your life. Your resistance becomes a sign. Your perseverance becomes preaching. Your victory becomes proof that the Almighty keeps His own. This is why, even without realizing it, you are inspiring multitudes. Your story, which seemed marked by pain, is now marked by triumph. Your trajectory, which seemed defined by loss, is now defined by light. You become a living letter, read by all, showing that nothing can stop one chosen by God. And the light that shines through you is so intense that it cannot be extinguished. It disturbs, yes. It exposes, yes. It reveals, yes. But it also inspires, heals, and guides. You are not just a survivor of darkness. You are a beacon that shows the way. Elect of God, understand, what is exposed is not defeat, it is revelation. What is exposed is not an end, it is a new beginning. What is exposed is not a fall, it is a coronation. And each time the light triumphs over darkness, you become living proof that eternity is already decreed in your life. Not just once, but continually. Not just now, but forever. Therefore, stand firm. The exposure did not come to shame you, but to exalt the glory of the Lord within you. Testimony is not only your defense, but your platform of authority, because every tear you shed will be converted into seeds of victory. Every accusation you faced will be converted into confirmation of your calling. Every night of darkness will be converted into a dawn of light. And when all see the truth, they will not be able to deny. This is one of God's chosen ones, guarded, preserved, and exalted. And you, the chosen one, will walk not as a victim, but as a living testimony that the light always wins. Always. God's chosen ones, take a deep breath now. This is the moment when the battles cease, when the accusing voices fall silent, when the spiritual tribunal closes the process and the final sentence is proclaimed. Eternal victory. You have not walked in vain. You have not suffered in vain. You have not been persecuted in vain. Every tear has been counted, every pain recorded, every dark night recorded before the throne of the Most High. What seemed forgotten has been remembered. What seemed ignored has been kept. And now the season of rest has arrived. The rest of the chosen ones is not simply the absence of war. It is the state of decreed victory, the certainty that no matter what arises, it no longer has the power to change destiny. Rest is when you look back and realize that all the battles were stepping stones, that all the wounds were seeds, that all the losses were merely preparation for multiplication. See the scene. You have crossed turbulent rivers, but you have not drowned. You walked through intense flames, but you were not consumed. You were in caves of silence, but you were never forgotten. And now, upon reaching the other side, there is a table prepared before you. Not a table of scarcity, but a table of plenty. Not a table of shame, but of honor. Not a table of defeat, but of celebration. This is the rest of God's elect. The rest of the Spirit that knows it has already won, even before the battle begins. Have you noticed how even the enemy confirms your identity? He never pursues those who carry no promise. He never attacks those who carry no purpose. The fact that you have been so attacked is already evidence that you carry something precious. But now, that same enemy needs to witness the spectacle of your victory. He needs to contemplate that everything he threw at you only served to propel you even further. And here is the secret. Rest is not passivity. Rest is the throne. It is the elevated position. It is when you no longer struggle to be seen, because the light of God within you already speaks for itself. It's when you no longer need to prove who you are, because your journey has become evident. It's when your identity is no longer up for debate, because it has already been sealed by heaven. God's chosen ones, rest is not the end of the journey, but the beginning of eternity. The war passes, but the decree remains. The battle ends, but the victory echoes, and this echo is eternal. When the enemy tried to incriminate you, he thought he would decree your downfall. But by trying to expose you, he exposed himself. By trying to imprison you, he imprisoned himself. By trying to shame you, he shamed himself. Now everything is clear. You were not the victim, but the protagonist of the revelation. And while they fall into their own traps, you are crowned. See the crown upon your head, not made of iron, but of gold refined by fire. Each jewel in this crown was formed from a defeated accusation, a shed tear, an injustice overcome. This crown is not just a symbol, it is a decree. She declares to the spiritual world, this is one of God's chosen ones, a victor forever. And so, rest is not just inner peace, it is eternal authority. It is walking knowing that you are untouchable, not because you will not be attacked, but because nothing can bring you down. Rest is the awareness that your life is sustained by a greater power. Listen carefully. You entered the fire and came out shining. You entered the valley and came out bearing fruit. You entered the pit and came out exalted. None of this was a coincidence. Every episode of your life was orchestrated so that, at this moment, you could raise your head and declare, divine justice has already been manifested. And this justice does not end here. It spans generations. Because the rest of the chosen is also the inheritance of those to come. Your children and your children's children will reap the victory you sowed with perseverance. Your lineage will be marked by light. Your family will be remembered as a descendant of victors. Now look, the sky opens, the storm recedes, night gives way to dawn, silence turns into song. You, God's chosen one, no longer walk in war, but in celebration. No longer live in defense, but in conquest. No longer remain in the shadows, but in the full light. Rest is also the time for proclamation. This is the time to say aloud who you are, because your identity can no longer be denied. The spiritual world has already recognized it. The eternal court has already decreed it. The heavens have already recorded it. You are God's chosen one. If you felt this revelation in your spirit, declare it now in the comments. I am God's chosen one, and my victory has already been decreed. Write this as a prophetic seal. Share this message so that others may also awaken. And stay in this channel, because this is not just another word. It is the prophetic movement that heaven is releasing for the chosen ones of this generation.